Welcome to Brains Byte Back, the podcast where we explore the intersection of technology, innovation, and the human experience. In today's episode, we sit down with David Fleming, an extraordinary young entrepreneur, inventor, and two-time American Ninja Warrior competitor. At just age 20, David has already made a remarkable impact with his invention, Releevum, a self-serve headache relief device inspired by his personal battle with migraines. He is one of an estimated 148 million people in the world suffering from chronic migraines. He joins us to share the journey that led him to create a device poised to help those find relief. And along the way, he delves into the science of headache treatment, the process of prototyping, and the lessons learned from launching a crowdfunding campaign to scale his startup. David also shares how he ended up participating in one of America's most inspirational competitions that's broadcasted internationally. So whether you're an aspiring inventor, someone living with chronic pain, or simply interested in listening to an inspiring story, then stick around.
I'm David Fleming, a 20-year-old inventor of Releevum, a self-serve headache relief device. I am a student at Yale University right now, originally from Boca Raton, Florida, and I'm a two-time competitor on American Ninja Warrior.
Amazing. David, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Brains Byte Back. I believe you're probably one of the youngest entrepreneurs that we've had on the podcast. You mentioned that you were 20. Is that correct? Yeah. But as they say, age is nothing but a number because you come with an impressive background in terms of what you've already achieved as an inventor and a ninja of sorts. Let's start with your background. Can you share a little bit about how you came up with the idea for Releevum? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are. Yeah. Well, first of all, thrilled to be on the podcast. Really excited to share some of my story. And I think it begins a little bit earlier. So I'll just note that at age 2, my life became a little bit plagued with health issues because doctors realized that I was legally blind in my left eye and prone to retinal detachment, which meant for the rest of my life, I would never be able to play contact sports, which will come into to play later with my transition to Ninja Warrior. But then by age 5, I began experiencing severe migraines, and each one would come with excruciating pain near my temples. I'm usually vomiting 20 to 30 times. I'm sort of on the floor and or on my bed in my room with the lights off, completely silent, just trying to sort of cope with this pain. And pretty logically, I went to doctors all over the country. I mean, I was, 5 years old, and then a couple of years later, 7 years old, 8 years old, I'm missing 20, 30 days of school. Sometimes the migraines are coming, 2 to 3 times a week. So with increasing frequency as I was getting older. And I went to doctors, in all different specialties around the country. And typically the advice would come down to two different options of either living with the pain or taking medication. As you could expect, living with the pain was completely unrealistic. I'm missing school. I'm not able to spend time with friends. I'm not able to grow and be an independent, budding adult because I'm spending so much time with my parents and family and canceling social events because I'm always afraid I'll have a migraine or end up actually having one. So there were a ton of concerns with, the idea of living with the pain. That was really scary for me. And then the concept of medication initially seemed, like a great option because I didn't have anything else to rely upon. But I realized pretty quickly that a lot of these medications would come with nasty side effects. So I would have some that would just wipe me out. I'd be in bed for 9, 10 days, just incapable of moving, super tired. Others would come with, health issues such as stomach aches, and I would just kind of be on my bed and, lots of pain from whatever medication I was taking. Some made me not want to eat anything. So there are all types of sort of side effects that would come with these medications, which is really concerning. So that was sort of the start of me wanting to change something. This invention came from my own problem of I'm experiencing pain. I'm having these migraines and I just can't find any solution. How can I possibly invent something that can relieve me of my pain and then possibly help others as well? And I would say that what made that decision very real for me, that I needed to solve this and I need to do it myself, was in the 6th grade. So I missed the last 55 days of 5th grade and I was kicked out of middle school because I couldn't meet the minimum attendance requirements. I was simply not able to go to school. I went for the first few days in sixth grade, and I just wasn't able to go back. The migraines were too intense and too frequent for me to stay in school properly. So I had to be homeschooled for those years. And that was really tough for me. I saw a very bright future for myself, and I just felt like I wasn't able to capitalize on my full potential at the time because I was really hindered by this constant pain that I was dedicated to relieve. And then I guess the next step came when I met a chiropractor who was intended to help my own headaches, and unfortunately wasn't very successful in doing that, but did do one thing. He told me about these suboccipital muscles. So these muscles at the base of the skull are connected through with some threads through the forehead. So oftentimes people experience headaches and actually stems from tension that builds up in these suboccipital muscles. So one thing he did is you just sort of press on these muscles and see if there was any tension, significant amount of tension. And one time I went to him when I had a headache, and I noticed immediately a massive release of tension and pain from my headache just by him pressing his fingers right here. Quickly, though, I realized that all types of issues with trying to do this consistently. You can't predict in advance when you're gonna have a headache, right? So I can't know when to schedule the appointments. There's just so many logistical factors here. If I kept going when I got headaches, then the payments would start racking up and it just wasn't cost effective either. So I wanted to figure out how I could take this concept that nothing else was working except for one thing, the simplest of them all, pressing fingers on the back of my forehead or the back of my head. And just with that simple concept, one morning I woke up with the idea that I could try to replicate this myself. So why don't I just take this concept and put it in my own hands? So immediately I looked up other options online. I'm like, oh, great. Well, I'll just buy one. Nothing online. So naturally, necessity being the mother of invention, I went to Home Depot, dragged my mom to Home Depot. Recall, I'm 11 years old at the time, super young kid. But I was just always trying to find ways to, relieve myself of the pain, just so significant, so taxing on my life. And I saw such a bright future ahead that I knew it was necessary to overcome this obstacle. No matter how I needed to do it, it was going to happen. I was dedicated. And the way for me, drag my mom to Home Depot, 11 years old, trying to just find some materials. And the first prototype is actually really funny, Eric. So I put together two kickstands, sort of like you'd have on a door or something like that. And I put them to a metal plate. So you can imagine these two kickstands going back and forth. And the thought was that their rubberized tips would be somewhat comfortable. I would have a little bit of adjustability for different neck sizes, and someone could lay down on it and apply that pressure right to their suboccipital muscles. So quickly, I realized this was after I created it not effective at all, but I loved the concept and I knew I need to continue with it.
The first
So
prototype is never like the last, right? So
it never is. Yeah. And I think that's something that necessary for all entrepreneurs to know. Failure is always the start, and then you just keep going until success comes because I was really dedicated to solving this issue no matter how many times it took. And for me, that wasn't a lot of them. I went through over 100 prototypes before I've now settled on my finalized design that I'm going to be manufacturing in the coming months in China.
but I imagine a
And
lot of research too. Like, were you going back to this chiropractor being like, hey, I'm trying to come up with how to do this at home by myself, like with like an item? Like, how did that play out? Like, what type of research went into it?
tons of research. Well, yeah, let me state that first. This is I'm not the hero of the story. This is not a solo effort. This was very much a team effort. The first thing I did immediately go back to my chiropractor. Fantastic resource. He's looking to help me. We're looking to help people. We're looking to change lives here. This is not about me, right? And then we did some additional research and we discovered that there were some just a significant effects of suboccipital release on relieving headaches. So I guess the first step was just further verification that this wasn't just me. He knew he did this on his patients and he knew it was effective on a few of them, but we hadn't really delved into the research papers of how effective this is. And then we did additional research and found that applying pressure to the suboccipital muscles can be remarkably effective for large ranges of people, not just specific types of groups who meet certain criteria in terms of ages, gender. No, this is for all people. find it very effective. So that was the first thing, is to really nail down the science of whether this actually works. And the answer was yes. So we knew we were sort of working with something that actually, would be effective. So it's just a matter of constructing the best device in order to apply this pressure. And he came up with, it sounds simple in hindsight, of course, but the brilliant idea of trying to replicate the thumb. So that was the primary, sort of finger that he was using, was the thumb, in order to apply pressure to this region. And he's like, well, why don't you just replicate the thumb in terms of sort of the density of it, or the durometer, in fact, so kind of how hard it is, how soft it is, how long it is, how thick it is, the diameter, everything about the thumb. I was trying to replicate that in the device. And then something that was also key is he realized, unlike a lot of other people I was talking to, how important adjustability would be in the future. Nowadays, about 10 years down the line, there are a few sort of competing products, but none of them are adjustable for different neck sizes. And it's super interesting how valuable that is. So I'll find some people where, like, kickstand, for example, is a great idea, where it just doesn't adjust that much for different neck sizes. That was a huge sort of problem with it. And it's really important, because not only do people have different neck sizes, but also within the same person, sometimes in different headaches, they'll have tension build up in different areas. So we needed some way to make sure that we can really replicate what he does in practice, which is be able to maneuver his hands in different locations to adjust for the particular patient he's dealing with. So really sort of tailored pressure and tailored service, which, of course, doing additional research is very much in line with larger healthcare trends of having more individualized service, more convenient services. So the product totally falls within some of the science we were seeing, some of the larger trends within healthcare. So I knew it was a really exciting space to delve into. And importantly for me, is something I'm passionate about, because I suffered from this and I knew that I was dedicated to relieving my pain. And once I did so, was able and willing and excited to help others with their pain too.
So it blows my mind that you're saying this, because I've always had the habit of, every time I have a headache, to put it's like instinctual, where I put my hand behind my neck and I start massaging.
Yes.
And I never, and for me, it's like I never really thought about that. I just always felt that this is what provided me relief right when I started having the headache. So you putting this into words and a science makes a lot of sense. And when you're talking about the amount of people that this affected, I looked up numbers here, and I think, and they're large numbers, and it's
Huge.
yeah, it's it's because it's a debilitating thing. And I don't
Right.
think a lot of people understands that when you have constant migraines, like how much it could really impact your like day-to-day life. And it's estimated here that up to 148 million people in the world suffer from chronic migraines. And it impacts roughly 37 million men, women, and children in the United States.
Crazy numbers. Yeah, exactly right though. Yeah, it has it's
So you realize there was a market for this, but how do you get this product out to the world? Because I understand that you started a crowdfunding campaign, and that really kind of helped it take off.
definitely. So yeah, like I said, the first step was to construct the best product, sort of work with the team to do so. And that took a lot of trial and error. Again, hundreds of prototypes. I would continually test product market fit by developing new prototype, going to some potential customers and seeing what they thought. They'd routinely provide feedback that was immensely helpful. I would incorporate this feedback into additional prototypes and then try to create something that'd be best. Of course, I don't want to let sort of perfection be the enemy of good, where I'm so focused on getting the perfect product that I don't get it out fast enough. And that was actually something that I struggled with. And if I had to do it over again, I would have been even more focused on speed rather than perfection. So that is something to sort of note in hindsight. But at the time, I was just focused on getting the right product with proper feedback from potential customers. And then, like you said, there's this massive gap with, great, you have a product, but that doesn't mean that customers will come to it. What is the sales strategy? What is the go-to-market strategy in order to sell this to lots of people? And initially, I thought that I would just be able to, I was naive. I thought that I would just sort of put it on the market and the people would start buying it. And one way to test this hypothesis was through my crowdfunding campaign. So I started a crowdfunding campaign 2 summers ago, and we end up raising about $30,000, beating our goal of $15,000, actually raising the $15,000 within the first 24 hours. So I had impressive showing at the beginning, and then definitely saw some slower trends throughout the rest of the process through the 30-day campaign. And something I found was that I was getting lots of clicks on the site, and then very few conversions. So I think that's due to one factor, which is just that for healthcare products, people really want it now. So people are experiencing pain, they want instant relief. So the idea of doing a crowdfunding campaign where they're waiting months, perhaps years for the product isn't quite as exciting for them. So I think there's some sort of structural reason why people weren't as interested in the crowdfunding. But then I think there's this other factor, again, going back to my naivety, where I just sort of thought that people would buy it. And I think there's just much more strategic market placement of my product that was necessary. So something I found that would be best, and it's crazy how I didn't think about this at the beginning. I think you just have to try things and sometimes you fail, that the best placement of my product initially is actually at chiropractic offices. So a lot of chiropractors will sell other products within their office, pillows and massage rollers and stuff like this, something that my product would fit quite well in. And you give it to the chiropractor at some wholesale price, and then they sell it at some additional price. So they're making some profit off this, and and so are you. So it's sort of a mutually beneficial process. And then the customer is able to get some awesome product at super convenient location for them. So this is what I've been focused on recently. And I went to some chiropractic conferences, and they have this sort of established vendor ability. So they have all these vendors that are set up, hundreds of them at a chiropractic conference. The most recent one I went to was in Orlando, where there were thousands of chiropractors, hundreds of vendors, this massive convention. And I would just have my stand set up. And because I wasn't actually selling the product, I'm still in the pre-ordering phase. I was just getting chiropractors to sign up saying that they're interested, that one is that they believe the product works, and then the other is that they would endorse the product. So one was endorsement, and then the other was that they sell in their office. And we found that about over 100 chiropractors end up coming up and signing that they would endorse the product and would sell in their office. So a tremendous showing there. All the chiropractors that end up talking to, and recall they're there for different reasons. They're not always trying to look at the products nearby, but the conversion from people checking out my booth to people actually signing they'd endorse and would sell in their office was incredibly high. So we found really strong product market fit within the chiropractic community. So I think that would be sort of my first foothold, because a lot of times you might want to, and you might be able to expand to all people. Almost everyone suffers from some type of stress, tension, headaches, migraines that this device could be extremely effective on. Because the studies reveal not only is this effective on headache and migraine in terms of treatment and prevention, but also just general stress and tension, which is super important. And of course, and additionally, we're all stressed out, we're all extra busy. So this is super important that sort of everyone can have the opportunity to try this. But I think the strongest go-to-market strategy would be within the chiropractic community. And then once I get a strong foothold there, I'm able to expand further.
It's interesting how you learned that. And I feel like we're in this time where reviews from people are really like important. Like Amazon's a perfect example of that. But reviews from experts that we trust.
Right.
So rather than going straight to, I guess, the people that need it, you go to the people that connect with the people that need it, if you know what I'm saying.
Exactly.
And how is the experience been? Because you went from literally being an inventor, you're figuring out the marketing, you're doing a startup, like there's all these different factors at play. But what's the pitching been like? You went to this chiropractic convention, you're going up, you're talking to these chiropractors, but like how like building your confidence to pitch this product.
Yeah, well, great question. I mean, the first thing that just sort of builds my confidence is the fact that it was so successful on me and on other people too. And I'll provide a quick anecdote of that. And this is something I routinely come back to in my life, just reminding me how important this project is to me, and then just what I want to do more broadly, which is make a tangible impact on other people's lives. And that's something that really drives me. So there's this one person who we're family friends with, and she has migraines pretty frequently, and she knew about my device, came over one time, probably an hour or two after the onset of her migraine. And she used the device for 3 to 5 minutes, which is really all it takes to, feel some of its effects. And then usually in the next 30 minutes after use, people will find a remarkable reduction in the intensity of their headache as well. Sometimes they'll go away completely. And in this case, she tried it for 3 to 5 minutes. She went home. I got a call after 30 minutes. And she said, David, it's gone. I said, what do you mean it's gone? She's like, no, the migraine is gone. I said, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that. She said, no, 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 you don't understand. My migraines will last 2 to 3 days usually. These are debilitating. They ruin my life for several days. I tried your product for 3 to 5 minutes and my migraine is gone. That was incredible. So powerful for me to hear. And that's exactly what drives me, gives me the confidence to pitch this to people that I'm so sure it works. It works on me, it works on other people. The market shows it's extremely effective. There's such a large market for this. So many people suffering from migraines, from headaches, from stress, from tension. And my confidence and drive to get this out to the market and sort of build this product up is just exceptional. So when, chiropractors and other people come asking about my device, I'm very eager to share what the device is about, have them try it out, and just to share my story more broadly of why I'm doing this, because I think it's really powerful and relatable for people because everyone suffers from, something or another, whether it's health issues or something. People always face obstacles in their life, and learning about someone who is able to embrace their obstacles, solve their own problem, and then aim to help other people is just really inspiring for a lot of people. So I found that that's really the reason I'm doing this.
This is what the podcast is all about. Obviously, talking to people like yourself, coming up with ideas to solve real world issues. And I can't imagine that her story will be the last story. Once this picks up even more, you'll hear more people, have more people reaching out to you, sharing similar stories.
Definitely, I'm sure. Hope so.
So, but on top of you running the startup, you mentioned that you're a student at Yale. How are you balancing both? Like, what advice would you give to somebody that, is, around your age, younger, has an idea, wants to do the same, focus on their academics while actually balancing a startup?
Yeah, so I think it's all about, great question. I think it's all about prioritization and efficiency, right? So I think a lot of people, and this is me too. I mean, I live and learn as well. I was very overwhelmed by lots of tasks. And then I realized to calmly soak them all in, prioritize which ones are most important, and decide to tackle those first. So there's that which component, which is really interesting. And then also on efficiency, I realized that there's some tasks that require perfection or near perfection, and the other ones that don't, that are just sort of completion based, just get it done. Some assignments in school, I just want to get it done. I just go in the library as efficiently as possible, complete it. And then there's some other things like the messaging or pitching of my product that requires near perfection. I want to get as close as possible. And that shouldn't be focused. I shouldn't be focused on efficiency in that process. I should be focused on doing my best work. So I think knowing what's prioritized, what not prioritized, and when to be efficient and when to put more effort into things is probably the most valuable thing I've done for myself. I also, very, very rarely check social media, don't check my phone often. I have an alarm clock so that instead of checking my phone every morning or every night, I'm just, sort of focused on life, my own thoughts, meditation a little bit. So that's really what's kept me going, able to manage all the tasks on my plate.
That's great advice. But I imagine another one of your big achievements, and before I let you go, I wanted to touch on this.
Yeah,
You mentioned that you were on American Ninja Warriors, and from what I see, you were on it twice. Can you talk a
exactly.
little bit about that?
I'd love to. So, starting at age, 8 or so, I began watching American Ninja Warrior, and funny enough, I began watching it, from my couch or from my bed when I was suffering from migraines, and it was a really exciting show. I mean, just, great show. Who can't love it? But one of the things that really stood out to me was the stories. People would conquer obstacles not only on the course but off the course. Such inspiring stories, so exciting people. You just want to see them win. You want to see them succeed. And I always loved that show. Like I said before, I wasn't able to participate in contact sports because of my eye and was always searching for some sport to do. I was, because of my migraines, actually, when I came into high school, I was 4 feet, 11 inches and 75 pounds. Very, very small. And I was just not well suited at all for any of the high school sports. A lot of my high school sports are, very demanding, very high level, and I was not a good choice to participate in some of those. However, we had an independent study requirement. So we had to take some class or sort of, fulfill some athletic requirement, whether through the school or not. And for me, that was rock climbing my freshman year. And then sophomore year, I was going to do rock climbing, except that there was a change to the curriculum or to the requirement in which you had to compete in whatever sport you were doing. And there was a Ninja Warrior training gym that opened just a year before this change happened in my hometown. And I went to the gym, found it was so cool. I sucked at the beginning. I was terrible. I couldn't do a single obstacle, but I found it so fun, so thrilling, and loved the change. Unlike most sports, which are pretty static, this is super dynamic. The obstacles are always changing. The people are getting better. No course is the same. It's all different. So I love the like dynamism of the course and of the community itself. So there are tons of factors that I just loved about Ninja Warrior. And then when I realized that there were recreational leagues, I decided to start competing and use my independent study requirement on that. So then I began competing in all these recreational leagues my sophomore year of high school, end up being top 50 in the country by the time I was a senior in high school. And then when I
So
got
wait,
into
like leagues that are like American
correct.
Ninja. You
Yes,
know what? It's funny that you say this because I didn't even know that existed. Because every time I saw the show, I was like, this looks like so much fun. Like,
right.
find a gym that has this. Like, because
Yes.
everybody's story is usually like, I'm a rock climber or I'm a gymnast. But I never see the people that are like, oh, I've like literally trained jumping up on walls and doing these similar obstacles. I think that's awesome.
It's so
Hmm.
yeah, it's so interesting. But with the popularity of the show, then all these local gyms, someone had this idea of, oh, wouldn't that be cool if we built a gym where people could try it? They
Totally.
built across the country, and then each gym would host their own little competition. So I would go around the country competing in these recreational leagues, end up doing really well, having a ton of fun, and then knowing that no Ivy League student had ever competed on American Ninja Warrior. When I got into Yale, I knew it was the perfect timing because it's not only about the competition aspect, but also about the story. And going from someone that was kicked out of middle school to someone that was end up being at Yale University, one of the most selective universities in the entire world, I knew was an additional layer to my story that'd be really inspiring for people and work great for TV. So knowing this, I decided to apply. And out of over 100,000 applications, they only chose 250 people, which is, for reference, less than a tenth of percent of what Yale's acceptance rate is. And
Wow.
that I ended up being one of those people, remarkably, getting on the show and then competed a following season as well and look to compete in future seasons. An incredible experience, so powerful for me after watching this show from my bed because I was so sick to being on the show and inspiring others in the same position I was in is an incredible full circle story that makes me really proud.
David, your family must be so proud. I'm excited to see what's in store for you next because you've already done so much. I'm sure you'll continue to achieve great things. If somebody's interested in reaching out to you and connecting with you, how could they do that?
Several ways. My Instagram is David Flem. I have my LinkedIn profile too. If you just search David Fleming, you should be able to find me. My email is david.fleming@yale.edu. So those are the
Awesome.
three primary ways.
Thanks for joining us on this episode, David.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's a wrap for today's episode. If you benefited from what you've learned today, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes. You can also find all our past and future episodes on YouTube and Spotify under Brains Byte Back. And if you'd like to connect with us directly, you can always reach out to us by email at info@sociable.co. Remember, your feedback helps us grow. We welcome it. We appreciate you joining us. Until next time.